If you're a senior or leadership level PM, here's exactly what you should be doing each day in order to find a next job. We're going to walk through LinkedIn tactics, applications, referrals, resume customization, mindset, and strategy. We're going to also go through some common questions that I get about every one of these areas every single day. Before you get started with these daily activities, let's make sure your resume is taken care of. For now, let me just say you shouldn't take more than a week to get your resume straightened out. If you can do your resume in a day or 2 or 3, to get to an 80-20 version you're happy with, then just do that. Assuming you've got your resume ready, let's get into what you should be doing from then on, day to day in your job search. Number one, your LinkedIn work, your LinkedIn connection requests. You should be building out your network every single day. In fact, this is a habit that I want you to use over your entire career, because over years you could accumulate literally thousands of people that are top product people, and their career progresses as well. So just being connected to them over the next year, 2, 3, 5, 10 will allow you just naturally to be connected with all kinds of product leaders, recruiters, engineers, etc. in your field. I would recommend at least 30 invitations sent out each day. Send them out without necessarily personalizing them, just to get it out, and increase the likelihood that you're going to be connected to somebody so that you can message them in an easier way later on. Being connected to someone on LinkedIn gives you their email address, sometimes gives you their phone number so that you could text them directly. So it's just good to have. The next thing, of course, you're doing every day is you're browsing jobs. You're browsing fresh jobs. You're looking through fresh jobs that are posted that day, that week, even that hour, if you're checking it multiple times a day. It's important to apply quickly, because all things being equal, the person who is higher up in the pipeline of resumes will be more likely to be reviewed. So you want to be as close to posting as possible. In between browsing jobs and applying, there's a few other steps that you should be doing every day. The first one is reviewing the job description so that you can understand what the problems are that are being actually addressed. What are the problems that the hiring manager is covering in the job description so that you could customize your resume appropriately. The next step is to actually customize your resume. If you are going to be applying for a large number of jobs, you don't want to spend too much time customizing your resume. But if you've got a relatively small list of companies where you want to work, for instance, if you're targeting the top AI labs in the world, there might be 5 to 10 of these. And if that's where you're determined to go and your background allows you to do that, then maybe those are the only 10 companies that you'll really consider. In that case, you can really afford to spend a lot of time customizing your resumes for these jobs, because there's only 10 companies that you're working with. However, if you're open to applying to 100, 200, 300, 500 different companies, then you are just checking jobs every single day. Your customization cannot be long, because you have to apply quickly so that you can move on to the next job. So depending on where you are, you're going to spend a little bit or a lot of time customizing your resume. We'll talk more about what customization actually means, but the general idea here is that you want to solve for the hiring manager's actual problem. The reason why you're reviewing job description, trying to find the one problem or 2 or 3 areas that are most important to the hiring manager, is because you want to customize your resume so that at the top, you can identify yourself as a potential solution to that problem or those problems. That's what customizing resume means. It does not mean rewriting your whole resume for every single job. It just means identifying the problems and actually putting it at the top of your resume so that the person sees that you could actually help their problem and just decide to give you a call or just to connect. That's all we're looking for. So the next step after we've customized is applying for jobs. You're going to be doing this every day. Again, depending on how many companies you're applying to, you're going to be doing more of this or less of this. If you're only targeting 10 companies, then you're going to be doing a lot of follow-up via email, via LinkedIn message, and via text. And you're going to be reaching out to product managers, senior leaders, engineers, recruiters, everybody, because you've only got the 10 companies. So you've got to speak to 100 people in order to get your foot in the door. If, on the other hand, you're targeting a variety of companies, you're targeting basically all the jobs that are out there that are coming online every day, then you just need to make sure you reach out to at least 1 or 2 contacts per job that you've applied. And that's an activity you're doing every single day. I don't consider your application complete until you've also sent an email or a LinkedIn message about that application to somebody. Then the next is networking. This is something you do on autopilot pretty much every single day. You're sending out some messages. These could be customized messages. These could be to warm outreach people you already know, acquaintances of yours, or completely cold based on actual utility that you can deliver to the other person. This is just your classical networking where you're really trying to connect with a new person without necessarily having something valuable to give them right away, but just for the purpose of networking. The last piece is your interview preparation. Now, of course, you're going to need to be prepared for your interviews when they eventually come, the behavioral questions, the product design, analytical, case study, whatever the case may be. However, I don't recommend that you invest heavily into this until you've actually got some recruiter screens on the calendar or some invitations to interviews or some other signal that's telling you that you're going to have interviews lined up. Because I see a lot of people focus their attention on interview preparation when they don't have any interviews lined up, nor do they know how they will get those interviews lined up. If you have some referrals, if you know for sure that you're going to get interviews, fine, you can prepare for them because you're going to need to do it anyway. But this right here is for those folks that are starting the search that know they need to do the top of funnel work, so to speak, in order to get their foot in the door. So how do you know when you need to switch to more of the interview prep part of the work instead of just the top of funnel activity? When you have lined up some conversations and you've got recruiters on your calendar, maybe you have some interviews on your calendar, then you can start to lean more heavily into preparation. And the first thing you should start from are your behavioral interviews. This starts from tell me about yourself, but then also goes into typical questions about success, failure, leadership, organization, strategy, driving alignment, conflict, etc. You're going to spend a lot of time thinking through your principles for these things, thinking through your answer, shortening that answer, being more concise, being a clearer communicator, and all of that takes time. But I don't want you to do that too much early on because I need you to be focused on getting your foot in the door. Here are some questions that I get on this daily workflow. How many LinkedIn connections to send per day? My recommendation is to send about 30. I don't think LinkedIn limits you, or if it does, it's somewhere above 30. We've never really had any issues with that when you make about 30 requests. Obviously, you're not going to get all 30 to say yes, but you can send up to 30 invitations. If you can do more, try it. Let me know in the comments if you've hit a limit, but 30, you should be safe. Should you send with or without a note? I recommend to send these invitations without a personalized note, but instead spend the time to actually optimize your LinkedIn so that the other person can easily say yes, because you have a great headline, you've got a great headshot, and it makes sense why they should connect, rather than a personalized note. It's going to take you time to write personalized notes, and I'd rather you just get 30 invitations out there, get 10 of them accepted, and have 10 new contacts in product. Should you go broad across companies or focus on a few? That depends on your goals, and we should be doing a separate video on how to think about your product career. My one advice here would be to just be proactive about it. Think about what is important for you right now. Is it compensation? Is it to work in a particular industry or vertical? Is it to work for a particular brand name company? Is it to work for a startup so that you could figure out how to get talent and maybe do your own startup? Is it leadership? You have to think about what's important for you now and in the future in order to figure out whether you should be restrictive or relatively loose with your potential companies to work for. Once you have figured it out, then that will guide how many companies you can apply for. Since this is a senior executive level, I would almost always recommend that you make some sort of company list. Even if that company list has 150 companies in it, I still recommend making it because it's going to narrow your efforts. Most of you folks, especially the more senior folks, if you're not considering startups, that list is going to be under 100. If you are considering startups, then you could have your list of big companies and then really consider any startups that are, for instance, late stage or at a particular funding round or at a particular stage of their life where they've been around for a while, they found product market fit, they have a particular revenue, whatever your requirements may be. How often should you browse job boards? I recommend at least once a day. If you're targeting narrow, then that's enough. If you're targeting broad, you could even do this a few times a day. Or for instance, if you're looking remotely or in a particular geographic area, then you may do one of those searches every day. You'll do a remote search, you'll do a particular geography like San Francisco Bay Area, for instance, or you'll do another geography where you could consider moving, and you could do those as separate searches. I recommend focusing your attention on LinkedIn. That covers 80% of your available jobs, especially if you're thinking for bigger companies. The reason is that you're going to be able to network within the people in those jobs a little bit easier. So you know that a job went online on LinkedIn, then you can look for people that work in those jobs, see what they've written, whether they've announced this job, whether they've announced that an adjacent org or team is hiring for that job. So you've got visibility right away and you're in the network. LinkedIn has sort of monopolized this market right now, and that's where everybody is. So you should be there as well. When should you stop browsing and just work through your pipeline? Great question. You should always be applying. Don't save jobs for later. Try to apply to the jobs when you've spotted it. I don't like to batch these things where you're browsing jobs, you're saving them, then tomorrow you're customizing, the next day you're applying. It's too slow. I would rather you browse, same day, you find something interesting, you stop, and you go through the steps that we talked about. Understanding the job description, customizing a resume, applying, following up with somebody inside, networking with somebody inside, and really pursuing that opportunity in full. How do I manage volume versus focus? Focus primarily on your inputs, the stuff that you can control. Can you control browsing every day? Yes. Can you control making a few applications a day? Yes. Can you send a few emails? Yes. What happens after that is a little bit out of your control. So concentrate on your inputs and let that drive your focus. How do I set up a weekly or daily cadence? So again, my recommendation is don't batch outreach days, browsing days, networking days. Do everything every day. All of these elements that I just talked about, you should be doing them every single day. If you can only do a little bit of a particular element, just do a little bit. How much time should be allocated to each activity, daily or weekly? We want to be able to get through all of those activities every single day. So at first, just start from the top. Start browsing, then looking through the resume, then looking through the job description, customizing resume, etc. At first, it might take you a few hours for each run through, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours even, to send the emails and do everything. Then later, you're going to get faster and faster. As you get a little bit used to it after you've done it for a few days, try to find the elements which are taking the longest and then try to see if you can optimize it. Usually there's some sort of bulk optimization things that we can do. For now, just keep an eye out on how long it takes you to do certain things. And if you identify any activity that take a really long time, consider reducing the amount of reps that you do in that activity. So if it takes you 2 hours to customize a resume, maybe just do one customization and then do the rest of the elements in the other buckets that we talked about. Let me also tell you what you're actually optimizing for. Think of this whole process as a funnel. The recruiters, the product managers, they're all trying to solve their problem. They don't particularly care about you or your background. They only care about whether or not you can solve their problem. So with all of your daily activities, everything we just talked about, please remember to think about those people and optimize for their experience, their workflow. You're a product manager, right? Just act in the best interest of the user. Your user is that reader, that viewer, that interviewer, the recruiter, and the hiring manager. Find their problem and make it apparent that you can solve it in each one of these activities. Every application, every email, every message, every outreach should be focused on that person and the problem that you can solve for them. If you're doing all of these activities, then you're doing what you need to do. Don't stop doing these activities even when you start getting applications. I don't want you to stop and go to zero. If you go straight to zero after you start getting an interview or two, then if those interviews don't pan out, it's going to take you another month or two to build up your pipeline so that you can get more interviews again. So don't ever stop doing all of these things that we talked about today. You can reduce the amount of hours. Don't spend 8 hours on it when you've already got interviews lined up. Spend 6, spend 4, spend 2, spend 1, spend 30 minutes, but do this every day so that you can keep it as a habit and you can keep your top of funnel number of interviews coming up next week, 2 or 3, at a consistently high level. Thanks very much. See you next time.